Welcome YouTube family to a Battlefront Bespin guide on the new heroes Lando Calrissian and Dengar included in the DLC. Now, I'm a big believer on keeping things short and sweet, and in one place. So this is going to be a succinct guide on both heroes, and we are starting with Dengar. During the development of the Outer Rim DLC, DICE developers were asking themselves, how can we make heroes more interesting, more fun, and have deeper layers of gameplay? The answer they came up with were trait cards for heroes. This proved extremely successful with both 9nub and Greedo, so it's returning with Dengar and Lando. Dengar's trait card is called Tough Fighter. It improves his armor and reduces incoming damage. As with the other heroes, this trait is raised by killing enemy players and damaging heroes. The cooldown, of course, resets when any damage is inflicted. This basically makes Dengar a tank. He can absorb tons of damage. He's strong, he's resilient, and he can be extremely powerful if he's paired with the right heroes or the right team players. Hell, he's powerful enough on his own. At level 1, Dengar's armor is increased 10%, at level 2 it's 25%, and level 3 is a whopping 50% increase. As long as you can find enemies to shoot at, this is a pretty easy trait to keep up since it blocks some incoming damage already. You can just seek the enemies out and keep that trait going strong. Dengar's first ability is actually inspired by his Clone Wars appearance. Now, we didn't know a whole lot about Dengar from the movies, so DICE kind of had to pull from his TV show appearances and his comic book appearances as well in order to build this character and build his abilities. Anyway, Explosive Rush causes Dengar to surge forward, throwing 3 explosives to his front, right, and his left. And if there are any enemies in the vicinity of his front, left, or right, those explosives will actually stick to the enemies, making escape impossible and death inevitable. Even though you cannot use this ability in any direction but forward, it doesn't mean that this is only useful for attacking. In fact, this is a great defensive ability. If you've got a lot of guys coming after you, this is a great trap to set for them. You can just toss those explosives out, even if you don't have enemies near the explosives that you're throwing. It'll be a huge distraction and very, very dangerous for them to walk near. You toss these in a hallway, that's a very explosive bottleneck. Someone's not walking out of there alive. Dengar's other ability, Hurricane Strike, is also very useful with Explosive Rush, as you can utilize Hurricane Strike to make you go even further past the enemies, or hell, you can do a 180 and use Hurricane Strike going toward the enemies after you toss the bombs. Not a bad way to turn the tides. Where are my manners? I haven't even introduced the ability. Dengar is actually well versed in hand-to-hand combat, which is where Hurricane Strike comes in. Dengar sprints forward and smacks anybody with the butt of his blaster at the end of the sprint. During the sprint, Dengar deals a decent amount of damage, similar to Han Solo's shoulder charge. But it's the end of the sprint where Dengar deals the most damage when he slaps somebody with the butt of his rifle. And that's usually enough for a kill, but it does take a little bit of timing. DICE also threw in a nice touch for Dengar's supposed hand-to-hand capabilities. He has a unique melee animation as compared to anybody else in Battlefront. Dengar's final ability, Frenzied Blast, has to do with the fact that he wields a DLT-19 and is the only hero to do so. Frenzied Blast greatly increases the rate of fire of the already high fire rate DLT-19, and it comes at the expense of recoil. The recoil is crazy on this thing. You think you'll be able to compensate for this, but it's more difficult than you think, and that's a good thing, because Frenzied Blast really ups the damage. You can kill and damage heroes at twice the rate you did before. If you're able to hit him, that is. And even though this is a guide, Simon Pegg voiced Dengar, so I'm gonna play the emotes for you, but if you want to skip them, there's an annotation right on the screen.
Poodoo! You're gonna take a dirt nap. Ooh, I'm so scared.
Lando Calrissian isn't simply skilled at gambling, he's also a skilled gunfighter, which is why they call him a specialist gunfighter. He's kinda like Han Solo, but really different. Actually, he's not a cookie cutter at all, which is what I was suspecting when I first saw his reveal. Like Dengar, DICE decided to utilize some expanded universe stuff to help build his character and abilities they borrowed from Star Wars TV shows and of course comic books, which is where the X8 Night Sniper comes from. It's from Star Wars Rebels, and instead of night vision, it gives him thermal vision. And just like in the TV show, it features a silencer that prevents Lando from appearing on enemy scanners. Lando's trait card, called Fortune Trigger, increases his chance for a critical hit by 5% at level 1, 10% at level 2, and a whopping 25% critical hit chance at level 3. And the levels are shaped like little die. It's adorable. It's because he's a gambler. As Fortune Trigger levels up, it becomes exponentially more difficult to keep it up. It is not easy to do so, but the increase in damage is definitely worth it. Luckily, dealing any damage will help you keep your current level. So keep firing. Lando's first ability is tied to his blaster, and it's called Power Blast. At first glance, it looks very similar to Han Solo's Lucky Shot, but it really isn't. Once you activate Power Blast, the X8 Night Sniper rifle begins to work like a pulse cannon, meaning that whenever you pull the trigger and hold down the trigger, it continues charging from levels 1, 2, 3, and finally 6, the highest level. And upon releasing it, it instantly fires wherever you happen to be. Of course, you could just tippy-tappy the trigger, and it's not going to charge at all. It's going to fire at level 1 if you tippy-tappy it, but a tippy-tappy shot is usually enough to take out a normal soldier. Now, this ability isn't tied to how often you fire or how much you charge. Instead, it's tied to a roughly 8-second timer. So don't be afraid to use it. That's the biggest thing with these heroes, is don't be afraid to use them. Don't be afraid to experiment. Go hog wild. You'll learn them eventually, but only through using them. Calrission's second ability is really cool. It's called Shocking Trap, and it's unique in the fact that Lando can drop it, and it's going to look like a power-up, or a hero pickup, or a hero health pickup. And once the enemy investigates it, BAM! It activates. And it shocks them heavily. If they fail to break out of it, they'll even die from the shot. As for heroes, they'll be briefly stunned, but they do suffer a significant amount of damage, so that's cool. But that's not all. The Shock Trap also appears on enemy radars as an enemy instead of Lando. Once Lando drops the Shock Trap, he no longer appears on scanners. The Shock Trap does. However, the trap is not entirely unrecognizable, so put it where it makes sense. His final power-up is called System Disruption, and it's equally as cool as the last one. Hell, even DICE says that System Disruption may be one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Once Lando triggers this ability, a circular wave is sent out around him, and anyone inside of the wave, their weapons are put on overheat, their star cards or villain powers are also on cooldown. This is incredible. It's an ability that doesn't deal damage to the enemies around him, yet still completely incapacitates them. Lando Calrissian is going to be amazing with teamwork if he's used and timed properly. Regardless, I think that these heroes are just as good as the previous heroes we received. Greedo and 9-Nub really surprised me. I wasn't too sure about having those characters, and I wasn't too sure about Dengar. But once again, DICE has fulfilled. I like him. And if you guys have any thoughts on the heroes as well, I'd like to know what you think in the comment section. But if you guys found this video helpful or entertaining, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more Star Wars Battlefront live streams, guides, and more. We also do other games aside from Star Wars games, but I mean, come on. It's Star Wars. Gotta love that. In any case, until next time, game massively, and may the Force be with you always.